That includes the Social Security Expansion Act, put forward by Senator Bernie Sanders and Warren, with companion House legislation from Peter DeFazio. Currently, Social Security is funded through payroll taxes of 6.2% paid by both workers and their employers, but those taxes only apply to income up to $147,000 as of 2022. Their bills call for phasing out the cap over the next 7 years. For contributions above the cap, it will provide additional benefits. And Sanders and Warren proposal would apply the payroll tax on all income above $250,000 a year, including capital gains, while also raising taxes on net investment income and certain business income. The Sanders and Warren bill calls for giving beneficiaries an extra $2,400 per year or $200 per month. The proposal includes a higher minimum benefit everybody, indexed to 125% of the federal poverty line. The National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare has also endorsed all of the plans. President Biden said the U.S. is not in a recession despite Thursday's GDP report, saying it is no surprise that the economy is slowing down amid inflation. The U.S. economy shrank in the period in the spring for the second consecutive quarter, meeting the criteria for recession as record high inflation and higher interest rates forced consumers and businesses to pull back on spending. Gross domestic product, the broadest measure of goods and services produced across the economy, shrank by 0.9% on an annualized basis in the 3-month period from April to June. Biden touted the job market, saying it remains historically strong, with unemployment at 3.6% and more than 1 million jobs created in the second quarter alone. We finally have an update on stimulus timelines from lawmakers. New inflation relief legislation has already been approved. Another batch of payments begin going out starting in just a few weeks. And also watch to the end to learn how to receive the latest stimulus payments. Time is running out for Massachusetts to offer one-time tax rebate checks that could see payments being sent out in October. Individual measures have already cleared both sides of the Senate and House, and once the bill is approved by the Republican governor, Charlie Baker, individual filers will receive a $250 rebate, and married couples who file jointly will get $500 as well. Governor Baker told reporters that he plans to sign the bill, which he hopes is the start of more tax relief efforts, given that the cost of everything has gone up. Lawmakers have until Sunday to get a final bill to Governor Baker. Massachusetts is just one of the many states to address rampant inflation and the growing threat of recession with tax rebate and stimulus checks. Florida, for example, is queuing up $450 inflation relief payments. Indiana Senate Republicans are also unveiling a bill to combat the rising cost of inflation, which represents a clear break from the stimulus plan that Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb proposed that would give every Indiana resident a $225 tax refund. Senate Bill 3 proposes that inflation be addressed by placing a cap on the state's sales tax on gas and suspending the 7% sales tax on utilities. Under the proposed legislation, the sales tax on gas cannot exceed 0.29 cents a gallon.
We were told we have 1 minute, so here goes. This is the lightning round. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here, and I want to echo what Senator Schatz said about the folks behind us representing so many Americans, young and old, who have made climate change such a priority all these years. We would not be standing here today on the verge of passing major legislation which will lower the cost of prescription drugs and help so many millions of seniors, lower the cost of energy for our families, and literally in the same bill, reduce the threat of climate change while reducing the deficit, all in the same bill. This bill does so much more that we don't have time to summarize. I want to highlight what it does on health care, of course, what we do to make sure that those ACA subsidies are in place for our families, what this bill does to preserve, and this doesn't get a lot of attention, but in my state, Pennsylvania, it does a lot for those families who have a relative who worked in a coal mine. The Black Lung Trust Fund will be solvent because of this legislation to help those workers. And finally, let me say this. I think it's a good time to ask a question of both parties. What did you do when you had the majority? What did you do with your majority? We know what they did. They used their majority and the president who was in power at the time to pass a tax bill that would further rig the code for big companies all across the world and also for very wealthy Americans. They rigged an already rigged tax code and did nothing for the middle class and for workers. What have we done with our majority? We passed a rescue plan that helped tens of millions of families with a child tax credit. We got to help to get our schools open. We helped to get vaccines out there. And in this bill, we're going to be able to push back on climate change, lower the cost of prescription drugs, make tax changes that bring more fairness, and get the deficit down. There is no question which party has been on the side of families and lifting them up, and what party has been on the side of corporations. I am grateful for the work that's been done.
Here to share his key takeaways from this morning's number is Kevin O'Leary. He's the chairman of O'Leary Ventures. Kevin, recession's off, I guess. Does this mean that all those CEOs who are trying to lure those stay-at-home workers back into the office are just going to have to suck it up now? I mean, workers still have the upper hand in this economy? What do you think?
Well, let me give you some anecdotal data that you'll find very interesting. I've got 10,000 employees across 54 different private companies in every sector in almost every state, 50 to 500 million in sales private. We thought that we couldn't get 15% back to the office, primarily in accounting, logistics, and compliance departments who sat in cubicles in the basement. Here we are, 30 months later, 55% did not come back to the office. Over half, 55%. When we threaten them with saying you lose your job if you don't come back, they say, great, I'm going to work for somebody else. Our CFO has never seen our headquarters, and she is one of the best and the brightest. Couldn't get her back. So the world's changed, the economy's changed. For every job I have 0.4% people to hire. I can't hire anybody in California. Minimum wage in leisure and consumer products and commercial kitchens, $15. I'm paying $22 if I can hire somebody.
How do you manage in that environment? How do you manage in that environment, Kevin? I mean, we're like in the upside down here, right? I mean, CEOs, guys like you, are used to being the boss, telling people what to do. I want you in the office. I want you to come here. I want you to go there. You can't really do that if you're talking about 0.4% of people out there that you can hire. I mean, you have to be very solicitous of these employees. It's worker power right now.
It is worker power, and I have to abide. I have to be the dude. I have to abide.
The dude abides.
And I got to tell you something. The greatest employees ever want what they want, and I don't want to lose them. So I've got to be very, very flexible. But frankly, with technology today, we get tremendous productivity. There's no question about it. And just to let you know something, I know I should be concerned about a recession, and I don't want to be overall optimistic. This quarter we're in right now is the best quarter we've ever had in terms of free cash flow. Our businesses are on fire. So I know we're talking about recession. I know the tech sector is laying people off, but in consumer goods and services, 65% of the American economy, we are rock and roll here. By the way, we don't need another payout from the government. We don't need the Build Back Better anti-inflation, whatever they're calling that bill. Please don't do that. Absolutely unnecessary. CHIPS Act, don't need it. The economy is doing its own thing after $6 trillion of printed money. I can't wait for the midterms, and I'm not political, but I know what's going to happen. This administration is going to get wiped out, and it'll be gridlock in Washington. As an investor, I love it.